Hello, my name is Robyn Middleton, and this is my story of how I fell upon and found Orthodoxy. I'd like to start earlier in my life because I do believe God was leading me here in the end. I was raised in an agnostic home. My parents didn't deny the existence of God, but they didn't actively seek it through church faith either. So we just considered ourselves to be agnostic, not knowing. We just didn't know. And then around the age of 17, I became interested in tarot cards and the occult and astrology. So I was dabbling in that, and I had an interest in that. And like I said, my parents, they were not churchgoers. But one day my mother said to me, she goes, "That stuff is evil. You should get rid of that stuff. Get it out of the house." And that, coming from my mother who claimed to be not religious, that kind of poked at me and shook me a little bit and scared me. So I did what she said. I took my deck of tarot cards, my crystal ball, and I threw them in the trash at night. And it was nighttime, I'm more spooked at night, I think. But then the next day, the sun's up, it's shining, I'm not scared anymore. I dug that stuff out of the trash. And I was just scared. It was nighttime, spooked. It's not bad, it's just astrology, it's just tarot cards. So the next day, I'm in the library studying for a biology exam for high school. And I needed a break, and I took a study break. I just started wandering the aisles. And I happened to find this book. It was a book by a Christian author, and it was written about tarot cards and the occult, and it explained why it was bad. And I remember I took the book and I sat down in one of those cubicles and I was reading it, and it started talking about Christ, and something just happened. I had some kind of a conversion realization where I understood here, not just here, but I understood here who he was, and I felt why what I was doing was wrong with the occult interests and practices. I felt that it was sin and that it was hurting me, and because it was hurting me, it was hurting him. And I just felt this wave of unconditional love, and I just started crying. So that was my first introduction to Christ, that he was real. And I denounced the tarot cards because I got it now. And then I became Southern Baptist. I started attending church with friends. I went off to college. And then I entered the Air Force around age 26 after grad school, and I entered the wide world, and I started getting lazy in my faith and slipping back into the ways of the world. So I was working as a medical service corps officer with the Air Force, and I was stationed in Germany. And being in Europe, the opportunity to tour all of the grand and ancient cathedrals, it just really spoke to me. I had grown up in a very Catholic area of the country, and I was always intrigued and interested by Roman Catholicism. And I would attend with friends to Mass. And I think something about the style of the worship, the candles, the incense, the chanting, it was very mysterious and mystical, and I think that kind of spoke to my tendency of looking for mysticism in the New Age. But I would go to Mass and I would think, yes, this is nice and beautiful, but there's just something about Roman Catholicism that didn't sit well with me, certain doctrines, and primarily it was the papacy. I couldn't get online in my head logically that there's this one human being who's infallible, and the hierarchical structure. So during the same time frame, while I'm stationed in Europe, I'm studying French as a hobby, and I have a French tutor who became a good friend. And one day after our French lesson, he goes, "Robyn, I want to read your cards for you, your tarot cards." And I said, "Oh no, I can't do that. I've given that up." He's like, "Oh, but no, these are good cards. They're from a good source. This is positive." And So I let him read my cards, but that was enough of a door opening. Like an alcoholic, shouldn't be hanging out in a bar. I shouldn't have, sat and participated in that reading, because my interest peaked again, and I went back to playing and reading tarot cards and horoscopes, just like a dog returns to its vomit. So, fast forward to 2020, COVID. COVID happened. It was very unsettling for most of us in many ways. It was very unsettling for me personally as a medical service corps officer, because I saw things happen within our healthcare system to where my friends, my coworkers, people that I worked with in the medical service for 24 years were just abandoning the medical ethics that we were charged to uphold. I saw all of these ethics put to the side during COVID, and I had a really hard time with it. I felt betrayed, and I felt heartbroken, and it really shook my worldview. So I took refuge in God. I started going back to church. I started going back to a Baptist church because that's what I knew. But the services, they didn't really speak to me. I was still interested in Catholicism, but I couldn't go there. Protestantism didn't really speak to me. I liked the more reverent style of worship. I always felt uncomfortable with the more show your emotions in the service. So in that way, I was attracted to liturgical worship. So during this time, during COVID, going back to church, I was listening to some Roman Catholic podcasts. And this one gentleman, he said, "You should try a Latin Mass." And I had never tried a Latin Mass before. He goes, because the whole energy and focus of it is different. Everybody's facing the altar, the priest is facing the altar, and we're there to worship. And we're not focused on ourselves. It's not this hour-long self-help service. How can we apply this to our lives and hear some good lessons from a guy who was teaching us how to be a better person? It was solely focused on worship. And that piqued my interest. So I started looking for a Latin Mass in the area, and I couldn't find one. And then I was listening to another Roman Catholic podcast, and the priest mentioned this one word, and the word was Septuagint. And I didn't know what that word was, so I looked it up, and I was like, oh, there are more books in the Bible? I didn't know about this. And who uses and references the Septuagint but the Orthodox Church? And I thought, what's the Orthodox Church? So I looked that up, and I started going down this rabbit hole. And it was really interesting because I had seen imagery of the Orthodox Church, but I had just thought it was Far Eastern European Roman Catholicism. I didn't even know about the Orthodox Church, so that was very intriguing. So I started looking up where's an Orthodox church that I can try out in the area. So the first church I tried was a Greek Orthodox church. And the morning that I'm driving to go to the liturgy at the Greek Orthodox Church, I hear this old song on the radio, Kyrie eleison from Mr. that 80s band. And I was like, wow, I haven't heard this song in a really long time. And then something in my head thought, I think that's Greek. I think that means something. So when I finally got to the church parking lot, I put it in park, and I get out my phone and I look it up, and sure enough, it means, Lord have mercy. And I thought, I wonder if this is a sign. So I attended that service, and it was nice. And then the second service I attended was here at this parish. And I felt comfortable here because it's a congregation with a lot of Protestant converts. So, speaking with these people has helped me to reinterpret what we have learned throughout our lives through the Protestant lens, and how to unpack that and how to reorientate that towards the Orthodox view. So this is where I have landed. And it didn't take long for me to convert. Once I found out that there was no Pope in the Orthodox Church, that there was no papacy, I was like, I'm I'm on board. I can do this. And things just started to make more sense. And the things that I was attracted to in the New Age, that sense of mystery and awe and ritual, sights and sounds, I find all that in the Orthodox Church. And I can orientate that liturgical, mystical craving towards the Savior in a proper context. For me, it's a full sensory body-mind experience to just stand and take it all in. The candles, the smells, the incense, the colors, the artwork, all of it. And the other thing about the Orthodox Church that speaks to me as a medical service corps officer is the analogy that many give that the church is a hospital. And that really speaks to me in that we come here to get care. We come here to get medicine and the sacraments and the beauty of the church. To me, it's all medicine. And all of us here, we're not perfect. We don't see ourselves as holy ones. We see ourselves as people who are sick and are struggling, and we're just here sitting together, standing together, and struggling together, struggling through this lifelong process to try and find him, to see him more clearly, and to hear his voice more clearly. So I know that was a little bit of a long trail, but I wanted to communicate, where I started and how I think God led me to the Orthodox Church. And I got another nice sign, I think, from God. I was baptized and chrismated on Pascha. And the next day, that Sunday morning, I went to prepare my breakfast, and I cracked an egg, and there were 2 yolks in my egg on Pascha morning. And I thought, I think that's symbolic. I think some traditions think that means something. So I looked it up, and yeah, it had some pagan, occultic symbolism, but it also had some Christian symbolism, that it's a sign of new birth, new life, new beginnings. And the fact that I came across that egg on Pascha morning, right when I had been baptized the day prior, that really meant something special to me. So if you're like me and you have been seduced, interested by the New Age, I will say that stuff, it's not of him. It's not where we should be placing our focus, but you can satisfy these mystical interests in the Orthodox Church because it's all here. The sights, the sounds, the chanting, the candles, the art, the ritual. It's here, and it puts it all into the proper context.